February 7, 2024, News Report 1. Reuters reports that the United States Central Command announced today that their drones successfully eliminated the Pearl Party Expedition's commander, Shadi, on February 7. This strike targeted Shadi's plan to attack the U.S. military base in Jordan, resulting in the sacrifice of 3 American soldiers. It is reported that Shadi was in a car in the Iraqi capital, Baghdad, at the time. The U.S. military drone launched a precise attack, destroying the car Shadi was traveling in. Sources reveal that all 3 individuals in the car with Shadi were killed, with no survivors. The U.S. Central Command stated that the United States will continue to take all necessary measures to protect its people and military, and will not hesitate to hold those who threaten the security of U.S. forces accountable. News Report 2. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, in a televised speech on the 7th, rejected the ceasefire agreement proposed by Hamas. Netanyahu stated that he had ordered an attack on the southernmost city of Gaza, Rafah, and believes that Israel will be able to resolve the issue within a few days. Israel's defense minister also declared before the U.S. Defense Secretary that Israel is on the verge of victory and that only a few more months are needed. They view continued military pressure as a necessary condition for the release of hostages, as surrendering to Hamas demands would lead to another massacre. Netanyahu held talks with U.S. Secretary of State Blinken on February 7. He insisted that Israel reject the ceasefire agreement, but Blinken stated that while some ceasefire proposals made by Hamas were unworkable, they could create space for agreement. The U.S. will continue to strive to achieve this goal. In addition, Blinken proposed a plan with Palestinian Authority President Abbas during the meeting on February 7, calling for the U.S. to recognize Palestine and urging the U.S. to pressure Israel to unfreeze Palestinian taxes. Meanwhile, France held a national funeral at the Invalides in Paris on February 7 for 42 French citizens killed in Hamas attacks on Israel. French President Macron called the Hamas attacks the largest anti-Semitic massacre of the century. Currently, 3 French citizens are still being held captive by Hamas in Gaza. France has the largest Jewish community in Europe, with 500,000 Jews, including 100,000 who reside in Israel and hold dual French and Israeli citizenship, making France an important player in this event. News Report 3. According to data released by the U.S. Department of Commerce on February 7, the total value of goods imported from Moscow to the United States last year reached $475 billion, an increase of 5% compared to the previous year. In contrast, the total value of goods imported from China to the United States last year was $427 billion, a historic decrease of 20%. It is worth noting that Mexico has surpassed China for the first time, becoming the #1 country from which the U.S. imports goods, marking the first time in over 20 years that Mexico has reached this position. After former U.S. President Trump began imposing high tariffs on Chinese imports in 2018, President Biden has continued to retain these tariffs since taking office. This has led to a gradual decrease in goods imported from China to the United States. U.S. Trade Representative Dai Chi stated that tariffs are seen as a defensive tool in U.S.-China trade relations, aimed at balancing the trade advantage gained by the United States through unfair trade practices. The U.S. government encourages Chinese companies to find suppliers in allied countries, known as offshore outsourcing, or to find suppliers in countries closer to the United States, known as nearshore outsourcing, or even bring manufacturing back to the United States. Mexico has become a beneficiary of U.S. companies seeking to reduce their reliance on Chinese factories. At the same time, some Chinese manufacturers have also chosen to establish factories in Mexico. News Report 4. Recently, the U.S. Trade Representative's Office released the Notorious Markets list for 2023, which includes 39 e-commerce platforms and 33 physical markets. These markets include China's Taobao, WeChat, Pinduoduo, and Global Express, AliExpress, as well as Baidu Wangpan, Dunhuang.com, and physical markets such as Shenzhen Huiqiang Bioelectronics and Beijing Xiushui Street. The focus of this year's Notorious Markets list is counterfeit products, which may pose health and safety risks. According to data from U.S. Customs, 3% of counterfeit products intercepted in 2021 originated from China or were shipped to the United States via Hong Kong. WeChat has been identified as one of China's largest platforms for counterfeit products, with users distributing and selling related products through the WeChat platform. U.S. Trade Representative Dai Chi stated that robust enforcement action is crucial to combating the trade of counterfeit products, which is essential for U.S. economic growth. News Report 5. On February 7, U.S. intelligence agencies, including the National Security Agency, issued a joint statement, stating that Chinese hacker organizations have been targeting critical infrastructure in the United States for the past 5 years. These hacker organizations are believed to be associated with the People's Liberation Army's Strategic Support Force, with one prominent group named Hurricane Panda. Their main targets are to infiltrate vital network systems in the United States, such as aviation, railways, and public transportation, and to lurk within them, waiting for opportunities to cause chaos in the event of a conflict between China and the United States, weaken the U.S.'s fighting spirit, and hinder the deployment and allocation of U.S. military resources. To address this threat, the FBI and the U.S. Department of Justice obtained court authorization in January to successfully remotely disable Hurricane Panda's operations. In addition, intelligence agencies from U.S. allies such as Britain, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand also jointly signed this statement. This indicates that America's allies are also concerned, fearing that Chinese hacker organizations may attack their infrastructure. News Report 6. The U.S. Department of Justice announced that U.S. law enforcement agencies arrested a Chinese-American engineer named Gong Chengwang on February 6. The Department of Justice accuses Gong Chengwang of stealing missile technology developed by the U.S. government, which is used to detect nuclear missile launch silos, track ballistic missiles, and hypersonic missiles. The U.S. Department of Justice stated that if this technology were to be acquired by hostile countries and used to track ballistic missiles and hypersonic missiles, it would pose a threat to U.S. national security. Gong Chengwang, currently 57 years old, was born in China and became a U.S. citizen in 2011. According to the charges, Gong Chengwang transferred more than 3,600 documents from his research and development company in 2023, attempting to provide information to China to assist the Chinese military. Additionally, Gong Chengwang has been applying for talent programs sponsored by the Chinese government. Gong Chengwang is charged with stealing trade secrets, and his detention hearing was held on February 7. At the hearing, his alleged criminal activities involving the theft of trade secrets were examined. News Report 7. According to Voice of America, NATO held a National Security Advisor meeting at its headquarters in Brussels on February 7 to discuss topics such as assisting Ukraine and addressing challenges posed by China. After the meeting, NATO Secretary-General Stoltenberg and U.S. National Security Advisor Sullivan held a joint press conference. Stoltenberg stated that NATO's adversaries are coming together to strengthen their forces, with Russia enhancing cooperation with China, North Korea, and Iran. Meanwhile, cooperation between NATO and countries such as Australia, Japan, New Zealand, and South Korea has become more important. He emphasized that NATO's support for Ukraine is not a charitable act but an important matter concerning NATO's own security interests. Because a Russian victory would weaken NATO allies and embolden Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea to act more recklessly. Sullivan stated that NATO's strengthening of ties with Indo-Pacific countries is not about bringing NATO to Asia but about cooperating with like-minded partners to address challenges posed by Russia and Indo-Pacific countries. He also stated that the purpose of this connection is to address joint threats from countries such as China, Iran, and North Korea. News Report 8. According to Bloomberg, Lithuanian Foreign Minister Landsbergis stated on February 8 that the Chinese government suddenly stopped issuing visas to Lithuanian citizens at the end of January without providing any explanation. Landsbergis pointed out that China draws red lines where it is advantageous for them, while other countries are only informed after they have crossed these red lines. It is reported that China stopped issuing visas to Lithuanian citizens at the end of January when a Lithuanian parliamentary delegation visited Taiwan. In early January, Lithuanian Foreign Minister Landsbergis congratulated Lai Ching-te on being elected as Taiwan's next president on Twitter. Lithuania allowed Taiwan to establish a representative office in its territory under the name Taiwan in 2021, which angered the Chinese government and led to strained relations. China subsequently downgraded its diplomatic relations with Lithuania and stopped importing Lithuanian products. Since then, relations between Lithuania and China have remained tense, and this incident has further exacerbated tensions. News Report 9. According to Reuters, the Swedish prosecution authority issued a statement on February 7 stating that Sweden will stop investigating the explosion incident of the Nord Stream gas pipeline and transfer the evidence found during the investigation to German investigators. The reason for discontinuing the investigation is that there is no evidence to suggest that Sweden or Swedish citizens were involved in the attack, and Sweden's jurisdiction does not apply in this case. In September 2022, a series of explosions occurred in parts of the Nord Stream pipeline located in the exclusive economic zones of Sweden and Denmark. Sweden, Denmark, and Germany conducted separate investigations into the incident. Investigators stated that traces found at the scene indicated that the explosions were man-made. Although Sweden has discontinued the investigation, investigations in Denmark and Germany are still ongoing. News Report 10. On February 7, Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen met with Tokyo Governor Yuriko Koike in Taipei. President Tsai Ing-wen stated that Yuriko Koike is well known in Taiwan and is also a good friend of Taiwan. She pointed out that Taiwan and Tokyo have many intersections in firefighting and education. Koike expressed her gratitude to Taiwan for its generous donations during the Noto Peninsula earthquake and stated that she will strengthen joint disaster prevention training between fire departments. News Report 11. According to Zeng Finance, on February 6, the double-color ball lottery draw in Shunan City, Guizhou Province, produced a huge prize of 680 million yuan, setting a record for double-color ball prizes. That evening, a total of 136 first prizes were drawn in the double-color ball lottery, with a single prize of 5.16 million yuan, totaling 680 million yuan. This huge prize was composed of 2 lottery tickets, both sold at a betting station in Pingba District, Anshuan City, purchased by the same person. One of the lottery tickets won 50 first prizes, totaling 258 million yuan, while the other won 83 first prizes, totaling 428 million yuan. Guizhou TV interviewed one of the winners of the lottery ticket, Mr. Duan, who is 28 years old and usually engaged in small business. Mr. Duan said he was so excited after winning the prize that he couldn't sleep all night, and went to claim the prize early the next morning. He explained that when he bought the lottery tickets, he placed bets based on the trend of the draw and his lucky numbers, but unexpectedly won 2 lottery tickets. However, this practice has raised suspicions among some people, suggesting possible cheating. In China, lottery fraud is an open secret, and some local governments often use this method to empty the lottery prize pool at once. Local governments often do this to deceive the people, but Chinese people continue to buy lottery tickets. News Report 12. It was reported that on February 7, the Jianghan Bridge in Hubei City experienced a near-collapse phenomenon, with passing vehicles being hit by brick-sized chunks of ice. Some skylights were shattered, and even the engine hood had large holes, posing a very dangerous situation. Wuhan experienced freezing rain for several days, causing trees, streetlights, and even bridge cables to be covered in thick ice. However, the government did not take any measures to address this, resulting in such a situation. On February 7, the temperature rose, causing the ice on the bridge to gradually melt and fall off from the iron locks of the bridge. Witnesses said the ice fell in sections, making a cracking sound. Due to the large amount of falling ice, more than a dozen passing vehicles were damaged. On that day, Wuhan closed other parts of the Jianghan Bridge for cleaning work. Falling ice is a natural phenomenon, but the local government did not take appropriate measures, resulting in this incident. News Report 13. February 7 marks the 4th anniversary of the death of Dr. Li Wenliang, who died from the Wuhan pneumonia epidemic. Netizens from all over China flooded into the comments section of Li Wenliang's last Weibo post, expressing their nostalgia and gratitude for him. Many netizens complained about recent troubles in Li Wenliang's Weibo post, such as the stock market crash, layoffs, pay cuts, and even some people's houses being foreclosed. Netizen Jiangnan's Xiao Mo Li expressed that although the epidemic has been somewhat controlled, the virus is still rampant, causing great trouble to ordinary people. Another netizen, Qi Huiyu Yan, said that Dr. Li Wenliang once predicted that the chairman of the China Securities Regulatory Commission would be replaced. Another netizen revealed that Dr. Li did not receive his salary this year, expressing respect and nostalgia for Dr. Li Wenliang. One netizen wrote in the comments section, "Dr. Li, today is the 4th anniversary of your departure. Are you okay? We are not doing well. We are still living in difficulty, just as confused as 4 years ago." Li Wenliang's Weibo comments section has become a place of solace for Chinese people, where they commemorate and cherish the doctor who sacrificed his life in the fight against the epidemic.